Class, before we move into our notebook, I wanted to review the word pretty with you. Class, how do we say pretty to spell it? Very good, we say pret-t. Pret-t. Go ahead and write pretty or pret-t as we say it. Write it and mark it. And make sure you say the sounds while you write them. All right, class, what's our first syllable in pret-t? Good, pret. And our second syllable? Good, T. And which E is it? Good, yeah. I-E. Remember, this is a two-way word in two different words because this sounds like it. We have our doubled consonant here to close that first syllable. So those are both ways that it's a two-way word. All right, this is our word. Well, how do we say it to spell it? Good, we say pret-t. How do we say it when we're talking? Good, when we're talking, we say pretty. All right, I'm going to use it in a sentence, and I want us to figure out what part of speech it is. Her horse is pretty. Her horse is pretty. Now, class, in that sentence, pretty is describing horse. What kind of a word is horse? Is it a noun or a verb? All right, horse is a noun. So pretty is going to be the kind of word that describes a noun. Class, what kind of word describes a noun? Good, an adjective. You don't need to write this. I just want you to see it. Pretty is an adjective because it describes a noun. All right, so pretty is an adjective. Now, you may remember from last week when we had busy and busier and busiest that we can make a regular adjective into what we call a comparative adjective. To do that, we add er. So we would make pretty into prettier. Let's see. That cat is prettier than mine. Prettier. All right, but before we could do prettier, because we want to add er, or the of her to the end of our word. But look what our word ends with. Which of our suffix rules would we need to use, class? The one that we use when we have a single Y at the end of a word. There's only one rule we do for that. Class, what is that? Excellent, that's our Y exchange rule. So that means when we're adding any suffix that does not start with I to the end of a base word that ends with a single Y, we trade our Y for an I. All right, so let's write the word prettier, except to spell prettier, what would we say? All right, listen, we would say pret-tier, pret-tier. All right, let's just do the first two syllables, pret-t, but remember to do that Y exchange and say the sounds while you write them. You can pause the video till you're finished. Pret-t, but with the Y exchange. All right, now all we have to do is add our the that makes it comparative, which is, right, the of her. So go ahead and add that. All right, so make sure you're prettier, or how do we say it to spell it? Good, prettier. Make sure it looks like mine. So remember when we add that the of her to an adjective, it makes it what we call a comparative adjective. Again, I do not expect you to write this down. I just want you to see it and hopefully remember it. For what we're doing right now, this is not the most important thing for us to remember. You know, we want to make sure we have our nouns and verbs really solid first. But I'm pretty sure these things are going to come up in 3rd grade. And so I'm hoping that you can remember them so you don't tell your 3rd grade teacher, oh no, Mrs. No never said anything about that. All right, so pretty is our adjective. When we add and make it into prettier, it becomes what we call a comparative adjective. Remember, that means we're comparing 2 things. So my mom's cat is prettier than mine is. We're just comparing 2 cats, mine and my mom's, right? So we use that when we're comparing 2 things, but we also practiced with busy and busier. We added another suffix. Do you remember what that suffix was? All right, that suffix we added to busy to make it busiest. The suffix was est. So let's go ahead and add that to pretty to make prettiest. But once again, we're going to need to do our Y exchange rule. So why don't you start by writing pret-t, just doing the Y exchange. All right, so again, you can pause the video till if you're not finished yet, pret-t. And then, so what was that suffix we added to the end of busy to make it busiest? Right, that suffix was est. What do we write for the suffix est? Good, our sounds are e, s, t. All right, so say the sounds in that suffix while you write them. All right, so when we have prettiest or prettiest, as we say to spell it, that is what we call our superlative adjective. Now I'm going to say that word superlative one more time. I want you to see if you hear a smaller word in it. Superlative. All right, and it sounds a little bit different because we changed the accent, but do we hear that word in superlative? Right, that's its base word, super, right? Super, superlative. And that means we're comparing more than 2 things. So you can think about it as the one that is super in the group. Right, so if you have a bunch of pretty bunnies, but the one that is the prettiest is going to be the most of the whole group, right? We're not just comparing 2 things, we're comparing more than 2. You could be comparing 5 bunnies or 100 bunnies or whatever it is, whichever one is the most pretty of all, you would say the prettiest. And we call that our superlative adjective, the one that we make adding est. So once again, we have that with busy, busier, and busiest. So busy is our adjective. Busier is just comparing 2 things. That would be our comparative adjective. And then busiest would be our superlative adjective. All right, so these 2 are not going to be on our quiz. right? But we want to get more comfortable with the comparative and superlative forms of adjectives. And again, if we just learn our Y exchange rules and our other suffix rules, then we have to learn fewer spelling words, right? Because we just know, oh, I have to do the Y exchange and add S to make it superlative. All right, nice work, class. I'll see you in our next video.